Welcome back to our council meeting, and we'll carry on with 8.3, the draft annual plan.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Good evening, everybody. Before you, I guess you see the 2006-27 annual plan. Whilst I assume and take it that it has been read as it stands, just want to sort of highlight a few points in that for the elected members. Firstly, we've, as a team, has critically reviewed all individual operating cost lines quite intensively, just to see where there's any sort of applicable savings available. We've agreed on the appropriate capital projects going forward. Tabled in attachment 2 is the proposed fees and charges, which in essence have attracted sort of a general 3% inflationary adjustment to those, I guess, except where prescribed in legislation, it's noted as otherwise. And we try to simplify the schedule in terms of making everything now inclusive of GST, unless it's sort of prescribed in legislation otherwise. In doing all of that, we've arrived at an increase in rates year on year of 3.9%, compared with 5.8% that was in the long-term plan year 3. The average rates increase will be applied across all rateable properties and sort of updated in the financial or the funding impact statement for the final iteration that comes through to council on the 13th of May. Just some high-level numbers for everybody's information. Our operating revenue for 2026 is 3.8% up on 2026. The operating expenses are 1.6% up on 2026. And our surplus of 1.6 million is 630,000 up on 2026, and about 1.4 million down on 2027 RTP year 3. All planned financial performance numbers that are within the plan meet all the prudent benchmark targets. They're set out on page, you'll see that on page 70 of the draft annual plan. That's sort of in a nutshell, and I sort of welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Questions for Mark? Councillor Newman.
Such a long list ahead of me. I know. I was just wondering, further to our conversation before about economic development in space and discussing possible sale of any assets and ring fencing of those, I was just wondering if that is in the plan anywhere, because I couldn't see it.
At this stage, the selling of any of the assets is not within the plan. I guess it comes to when we crystallise the actual sale of those assets and then decide which, I think Jeff alluded to earlier on, it may be within the new financial year. And then we'll bring that item up to council at that point in time.
Deputy Mayor.
One of the things you've just highlighted, the prudence disclosure statement. Every single annual plan or long-term plan, I've talked about this and said we're not under our limits, and this time we're under all of our limits, and it's the smallest. It's always been like a 2-page spread, and I just thought it's such a good news story. It could take up more space in the plan, because it has been consistently something that has been frustrating. That the final page shows that we were outside of the bill plus 2%, and I was very, very excited to see that it's not the case this time.
Thank you. Noted.
Another question that I had, that's comment. Question I had on the page 57, the prospective funding impact statement for community support. There were some variances in the community support staff cost increases, internal charges, and the overheads. I wonder if you could just explain what the movements of those numbers were with regards to. 57.
Is that for community support?
Yeah, community support. There were just quite a few numbers there that were jumping around a bit from the long-term plan figures, the annual plan, and past years.
Did we pull out the event centre from it, or does it include the events? That would include the event centre.
Because we've gone.
So overall, I think it's pretty much aligned.
Yeah, so there's something that's changed within the I was just trying to figure out what the difference was with the internal charges and overheads. The annual plan is now at 1.5. It was going to be at 2.4. And then the payment to staff and suppliers was going to be 3.5, and now it's 4.1. I was just trying to understand why the change in those lines.
And I think we had within the current plan for 2026, in terms of the allocation of staff and personnel costs, etc.
Yeah.
Sort of realignment of that. So we've taken 26 as the base year, the actual as the base.
Yeah.
And applied to the rationale going forward as to where those personnel and overhead costs sit.
Rather
So there probably was
LTP is
not looked at the LTP because LTP
Yeah.
had certain assumptions,
Yeah.
and inflationary adjustments.
Yeah.
Into those. So we've looked at it from a base case scenario, taking the actuals now and sort of working that forward.
May I also just highlight that top of that page 57 on the right, the left-hand column on the refers to the annual plan 30 June 2025.
Yeah.
It should be annual plan 2026. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So you need to adjust that one.
So Adele?
Thank you. You, Steve. In the fees and charges on page 26 of the fees and charges, page 98 of the agenda, event centre, we have a civic plaza. Is that the courthouse? And on the heading, it says, sorry, it says civic plaza.
Wouldn't that be like the outdoor areas inside it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the front's the foyer. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no courthouse.
These are just having in mind. For the rest of
Not listed under the event centre. I couldn't see where they were listed anywhere.
Yeah. Good point.
actually, so that would be because the fees for the courthouse used to always come separately because they were attached to the trust.
Yeah.
So now that they come off the graphs, it will just be an oversight that we're going to include in the net. So I'll just put the market with our.
Thank
you for picking that up, all right?
Thank you. Shows them.
So Lawrence,
Under water supply, I note that we have proposed capital expenditure of $3.194 million. I now understand, having had a quick chat with the chief executive the other day, that that is for budgeted expenditure on the Wairarapa project, which we're not 100% committed to spending yet. Question, and you may want to answer this, but it could be roughly a wild guess would do. If we didn't go ahead with that, what impact would that have on our proposed rates increase? Presumably it will drop it slightly.
Oh, good question. Yeah, I could jump in. Yes. So you are correct. The 3.19 in there is the proposed carry forward of the expenditure for Wairarapa that is not anticipated to be spent this year. We would propose to loan fund that next year, so there would be a 50% charge of that going through to the rate for in the first year, and then 100% the next year. So when we had 100%, our rough estimate is about $2.5 million is 1% on rates when it comes to CapEx, and about $200,000 to $250,000 is of OpEx is 1% of rates. So on that basis, it should pull it back by half of 1% in the first year, so perhaps 0.5%. If that's dropped, that's just a rough estimate.
I just I think it's a point worth making, that our business as usual proposed rates increases probably somewhat less than 3.9. This is us endeavouring to future-proof the district, and
It's kind of like a placeholder, isn't it?
Yes. It is, that is, as councillor Lawrence points out, that it is future proofing. It's not something that we've committed to just yet. And if it were to come out, the rates number of 3.9 would be less.
I have one more kind of detailed question with regards to the that funding impact statement. Scroll down now. With regards to internal debts, so I'm thinking with regards to the event centre here, finance costs listed at 100,000. Is that the figure for our interest on the event centre, or does it come within the internal charges and overheads because of how it's on our books, debt funded? Sorry.
Back on.
Yeah, back to 57. Sorry, I missed it before. I forgot to ask.
The finance costs should just be the interest cost relating to that loan.
Yeah.
Not any principal repayments.
Okay.
Correct, and it's been realigned from where it was in 25, 26.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just a question regarding roading. You know, we know that that's a large part of our budget, and so far we've got insufficient funds to repair our bridges and things like that. Any thought been given to perhaps just increasing that a little bit? I know it'll affect the rates, but as long as we sort of keep it, if there's room to move, that's the area I sort of feel we need to put a little bit more attention in, because I think we're kicking the can down the road with, excuse the pun, with rural road maintenance, with all the bridges. I know we've got a workshop, I think, or something like that coming up on it. But if we're setting rates now, I feel we may be losing an opportunity to get a little bit further ahead in maintenance.
I just ask a question around that, just in regards to, I think that's a good conversation for our LTP discussions going forward. My question, which I've lost. Come back to me, please.
It was a great thought, wasn't it? You know, one of those pearls of wisdom, I know.
Not increase the budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could respond to Councillor Casey, I think we are able to increase the budget to where it doesn't change a level of service. Where we decide to change the level of service, that would trigger a consultation requirement, which we prefer not to do at this later stage of the annual planning process. However, council may like to consider undertaking more investigative work on some of our critical assets to help inform the LTP. And certainly that wouldn't be a change in level of service, and it would allow us the opportunity to have a more informed conversation about when you are considering increasing the roading budget, how much you may wish to increase the roading budget to deal with these things. We've done it recently on bridges in terms of undertaking an investigation on bridges, and we may be able to do it on other parts of the roading network and bring that back to council rather than changing the funding for roading, which would flow through to a much more consequential change.
Yeah, I'm just sort of thinking about, you know, like Wellington got into so much trouble by underinvesting in all its water, as we know, and then failures started occurring. You know, if we can keep on top of it so that we don't end up being a knee-jerk to a lot of things that start to fail because we didn't give it timely maintenance and preventative maintenance, perhaps, things like that. And it's one of those things, of course, the community never sees. They never notice a bridge that didn't collapse or a road that didn't have potholes, but they certainly notice when they do. Yeah. And that goes against us. So I think in some ways comes down to the engineering crew who can advise us just what the state is, and we get to a point where, yeah, we do need to now start putting more into this. And yeah, it might be that, okay, we're fine now, but I just sort of feel kicking the can down the road. I know we haven't got enough funds to put everything in. I mean, the other question that comes out of it is that if we did up the budget, does NZTA automatically meet us with the repairs based on their 51%, or do they need to be involved in approving what we plan to expend or not?
NZTA budgets are set every 3 years, so at this stage, any change in our budget won't change their commitment.
Yeah, but they spend 51% on our invoice, right? What we actually got to charge to fix the road. And so what comes up to a cap, and if we use that 3 years early, we're stuffed, right?
If council wishes, we could take away an action to investigate whether there are opportunities for us to do some further research and include that in the budget.
I'd like that.
I know Graham sat here and said the budget's very slim for maintenance and bridges and all that. At the same time, like 3.9% too.
And every CapEx, every budget manager will sit here and tell you that their budget's slim, and we should take comfort from the.
Tell them to go back.
Yeah.
I remember what I was going to ask.
Sorry, we've moved on.
Covered it in increased level of service, but mine was around, yes, we could potentially increase the budget that we set aside for that, but had Fulton Hogan even got the capability to fulfill more work in their
So next
program?
it's maxed out. Is Fulton Hogan our only source of contractor for rural?
They have the contract for maintaining our roads.
So if they can't provide a service or whatever, we have to wait until they can.
Yes, they have the preferred contract, so it's Fulton Hogan.
The questions, I have a couple of grammatical things, and do you just want me to send them via email, or do you want me to mention them now?
That'll be great.
No.
Email, thank you. Thank you.
Can't come on this thing, did you?
One of them's just my phone number. I certainly want to have my.
Mine's wrong. Yeah, my phone number's wrong too.
You better offer me one.
Yeah.
Really want
In some respects, happy not to be phoned. Better have it right. But if we can send any grammatical stuff that you find in there to Mark.
Okay.
Great.
Could I clarify where we landed with Councillor Casey's feedback?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
And I understand where Councillor Casey is. Where's council at? Is that an instruction to us to go away and look at changing or bringing in further budget into the roading side of things?
I'm more in favour of what you mentioned about investigating where we might look to put more budget in the future, is probably from my perspective.
Yeah, I support that idea. So we're in a good position to make a decision when it comes to the long-term plan.
Yeah.
This is just the budget for June.
Oh, cool. Oh, right. Yes. Okay. So short. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm happy with that as well.
Thank you.
Let's ask one more question. I ask this all the time because I get confused. The borrowings figure in here, does that include our internal borrowings? It's just the external debt.
External.
Can I follow on from that? Am I allowed?
Absolutely.
Hesitation.
Are you
So-
nominating someone?
No, yeah. Hello. So my question was with regards to the internal borrowings not being shown here. Where does council get the oversight of internal borrowings and comings and goings within that sort of pool of money? If it's not within an annual plan, what's the process that should be followed or we should expect to see to understand the internal borrowings more.
My expectation is we should be reporting them through the investment committee and the treasury report.
Okay.
It should talk about our borrowings, both internal and external.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't,
Yeah.
we'll make sure that those borrowings are shown up in that treasury report.
I think it used to be an audit requirement until the restricted or reduced disclosures came into effect.
Mhm.
Sort of extracted that from the annual report.
Okay.
Councillor Newman?
Question, it mentions about inserting a table of example properties across the different rating categories.
Mhm.
Will that come with us when we're presented the final one for adoption?
Correct. Yes.
It has spooked us in the past.
I was going to say, it'd be really nice if there was a way for us to have a bit more visibility as we go through the process, because this has happened in the past where there's been some massive things we didn't see coming in terms of where the impact is for our ratepayers.
Yeah.
And so it does worry me a little bit that you're going to be bringing that to us at the same time we're adopting it.
We'll share it as soon as we've got it. It's a slightly different modelling tool it's a completely different modelling tool, different set of software that takes our rating database as opposed to our financial database and models it through. What I can say is we're not proposing any new rates, and the changes to rates are very low in terms of we're not doing significant changes to economic development rate or bringing in a targeted rate. So I wouldn't expect the modelling to show major swings due to rates. My expectation is if there is swings, it's more likely to do with property values and building work that has occurred on the property. So where there has been a new building put in place, so the capital value's gone up significantly, that will drive a significant increase in rates. But we will share it as soon as we've got it. But my initial feeling is because we are not changing rates materially from last year, there won't be material swings.
Okay. Thanks.
I might just add a final comment. The prospective statement of comprehensive revenue, page 62, just looking at the difference between our rates collection, the long-term plan said we would be collecting $23 million worth of rates. It's now 21. I just think $2 million of rates that we aren't collecting is pretty significant to our community. So I'm really pleased to see that level of change that's come through from the long-term plan. It feels like we only said it 5 minutes ago, but the fact that there's been this change, and I feel like I've seen it through the way that management have made decisions around staffing changes and making sure that we are running a business that's fit for purpose. I think it's coming through in the numbers, which is really exciting.
Thank you.
You think we'll get an accolade from the Taxpayers Union?
They might too. Bottom of that list.
Probably good to have this number before we did this. Yes.
Sadly, Councillor Casey, I think they've stopped doing the list.
Yeah. All right.
There was something in the LGOIMAs, or about 8 things from them. So they must be doing something.
We'll talk about that when we get. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, we've got 3 recommendations here. I'm going to take all 3 at the same time. Number 1, we received the report. Number 2, notes the draft annual plan 26-27 is forecasting an average rate increase of 3.9%. And number 3, notes the final annual plan 26-27 is expected to be presented to council for consideration on the 13th of May 2026. Mover? Or did I just move it?
Moved it.
Second is Councillor Gallen. All in favour?
Aye.
Yes. Carried.
Well done.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay. 8.4. Wairarapa Emergency Management Capability Strategy 25 to 30. Jerry.
Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. As the report outlines, so we're bringing 3 councils have been working together on a strategy for the new Emergency Management Office. I say new, we've been running since mid last year, but just to formalise those outcomes and direction that we want to take Wairarapa as a whole in terms of the council capability. So just emphasising this is an internal, really operating strategy that is going to lift our capability and our capacity and projected across the next 5 years to do that in a really planned way. So emergency responses, that happen in between notwithstanding. So the normal course of business, this is what we'll be heading towards for the next while. We have noted the changes through the proposed legislation to the emergency management bills, and also it aligns really nicely with the Wellington Region group plan that's currently out for consultation as well. So those elements are woven through what we're going to be doing locally. So we'll still be guided in a lot of our mahi by REMO, and we'll still align with those that work that's happening there as well. It has, as I've noted, the Risk and Assurance Committee have looked over the strategy itself, and there's some really targeted sort of outcomes and timelines in there that we'll report through to policy and projects as we go along. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jerry. Questions for Jerry?
Just one, and we come across this all the time. Notes that the South Wairarapa and Marsden District Councils will consider. Have they done that yet?
No, they have not. So that will be their next meeting.
And we don't think they'll want to change anything?
No, certainly we can't see anything change. The South Wairarapa Council have yet to see it, but Marsden have, through their risk and assurance as well, have really had oversight. And yes, South Wairarapa will be next, but there's not anticipated to be any changes.
Councillor Della.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steve Lawrence, for answering my question. This in recommendation 3, as he said, this will only go ahead if the other 2 councils adopt it. Is that correct? The way I see it, it is a shared service, and it needs equal input. The risks I see are the conflicts of priorities amongst the 3 councils. I know it's happened before, so we've got to be very careful on our staff time and shared ownership, basically, and that's really important with this, I think, because it's going to chew up a fair bit of time. Thank you.
Della. Very pertinent point. Any further discussion? Okay. Recommendations.
So, just do we need to have another recommendation in there that's subject to South Wai and Marsden adopting it? Quite happy with that. So if we adopt it,
We're not left holding the baby.
and only one of them adopt it, what do we do?
My feeling is it needs to be fit for purpose for our district, and our recommendation is it is. So adopting it would be the right thing to do for our district, regardless of whether or not the other 2 districts decide to also join.
And we can bring back any changes or recommendations to policy and projects. If they choose to do that, we can review it, obviously, at any time that we'd like to, if there's some significant amendments that I'd like to make.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. I'm happy to take those 3 recommendations together. Number 1, we received the report. Number 2, adopt the Wairarapa Management Capability Strategy 25 to 2030. And 3, notes that South Wairarapa and Marsden District Councils will consider the adoption of the strategy at their next ordinary council meetings. I'm happy to move that. Seconder, anyone? Councillor Burns, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Point 5, introduction of the 2027-2037 long-term plan project.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Jerry.
So summarising the workshop that we had last week to introduce the plan from the project team. So we're looking at, nearly an 18-month plan. We talked through a lot of the roles of the elected members, the timeframes involved, and I've detailed all that. But I guess I would say overall, as this will be quite a complex and evolving plan process. notwithstanding some of the challenges that we have. So we've already talked about roading and various other challenges. There are significant changes in this plan that we need to consider that we haven't done before in long-term plans. So the transfer of the water services to the new entity, the evolving legislation that's still ongoing, and some of that may not be confirmed till later in the year. And then, of course, affordability and one of the pieces of legislation, rates capping. So all be, yes, evolving is the word apparently for this plan. Maybe that's our theme for the overall plan.
Evolving change.
Yeah, evolving change. And I mean, just as we're going through the fuel disruption at the moment, I think, you know, there's a lot in the environment. Also just included a summary of the environmental workshop that we had, the environmental scan workshop that we had a wee while ago, just the outcomes that we saw from there. And more of that will feed into the strategic direction setting workshop that we'll be running in a few weeks as well. So some of that knowledge and uncovering that you've had, you'll use that to start your strategic decision making and direction. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jerry?
Just in case, being new to the long-term plan, it's a 2027 to 2037. Does that mean next year we're looking at a 2028 to 2038? Does it work like that? It's a progressively, we're always 10 years out, and we just make adjustments accordingly.
So the short answer is no. We do a 3-year review. So we have a 3-year plan. So we do
once to try.
Yes, we do project.
Can we do it early in the triennium and doing it now?
It stops in the middle.
Yes, it normally sits in the middle. So you've got a little bit of chunk of work and experience behind you.
Right.
So this will come into effect 1 July next year.
Right.
So 27. We'll project or do some planning for 10 years. But in terms of our infrastructure, you were talking before, Councillor Casey, around that, those long-term plans are actually projected out to 30 and even 50 years within the 10-year plan. So it's a 3-year review of a 10-year plan.
Right.
And yes, the 10-year
Supported
keeps
by
moving.
30-year infrastructure strategy.
Okay.
Which is often why the last 7 years of a 10-year plan you cannot often take with a grain of salt.
Yeah, yes.
Often none of it never comes through
Yes.
because it all gets changed.
Yes, I can understand that. It's very hard to plan 10 years out anyway, isn't it?
I think you touched on it before, though, around planning that long-term infrastructure.
Yeah.
And we talked earlier that last time council did increase roading funding to recognise that. So,
Yeah.
but it is very incremental. But the long-term vision is what we're trying to look at in this plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
And whilst it can be difficult looking out 10 years, I think when you look at an infrastructure plan that looks at the life of an asset and the age of an asset, it is quite obvious to determine when that asset should be replaced. And so when you go through all of your assets, you can actually come up with quite an organised plan that is phased over a period of time on when things should actually be replaced, which is really a good framework for the starting point of the conversation.
So when you look at assets, and let's go back to bridges again, is it the fact that we don't have enough money now to repair bridges as a failure of long-term planning in the past?
No, I think there's a number of factors that come in. There's decisions of the past, but there's also the cost escalation. So we found shortly after COVID, whilst CPI was relatively low and, you know, the price of cheese remained relatively low, the price of concrete and cement and bitumen and all the things that you use, steel, all the things that you use in building bridges skyrocketed. And those things have a real impact on how much you can afford to replace.
As well as legislative things like traffic management and all that, but wasn't originally budgeted for. Yeah.
Any further questions and discussion on this? Thank you, Jerry. I just want to mention, probably for the community's benefit, just you look at the actual risks that you've listed in there, and I think the community need to have a lot of understanding around how lean our council is run and how much of an impact all these changes have on our staff's capability to complete this. So I really appreciate the work there. Thank you. Recommendations. We have two, and I'm happy to take those together. Number one, we received the report, and number two, endorses the project plan for the development of the long-term plan 2027 to 2037. Councillor Newman and seconded Councillor Della. All in favour? Against? Carried.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
8.6. Delegation to Carterton District Council's representative on the stakeholder forum of the Wairarapa Tararua Water Services Organisation.
John, Your Worship, this ratification of the decision we made by email to provide a delegation to Councillor Dellett on the Wairarapa Tararua Water Services Organisation. Just wanted to bring that up into the public domain and ratify that decision with a formal resolution.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay. We have another two recommendations, and I'm happy to take both of those together as well. Number one, we received the report. Number two, note that Carterton District Council agreed by an email vote on 3rd of March 2026 to extend the delegated authority to the CDC representative on the stakeholder forum of the Wairarapa Tararua Water Services Organisation, or the alternative representative if required, to A, approve director recruitment, appointment and removal if required, and B, approve the remuneration of the directors of the company. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder?
Yep.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Jeff. 8.7.
Happy to take questions or?
Local government official information and meetings and requests.
You can be here for this one and the next one.
Kia ora no. I would just, so these are our two standards coming up. I would just point out or reiterate, I think our comments earlier, and we've had a few taxpayer union LGOIMAs, which are quite extensive. You will note that some of our days are over our desired or legislative 20 days. We do have provision to seek extensions as we need. The predominant reason for that is just in terms of our resourcing in our financing team. So you'll know that we're one down in our lean team. So that's why you'll see some of the days taking a bit longer. But noting at the end, we don't have any requests that are still open. So we've worked pretty hard to get up to date.
Thank you, Jerry. Questions? No questions? Discussion?
Probably just one question, and it's a general question. Jerry, when you reply to these, do you get any feedback later saying thanks very much, I'm satisfied, or no, that's not what I wanted on?
Generally not. Well, the ones that are not happy with the response.
Yes, so the ones that are unhappy either lodge another LGOIMA or so at the bottom of all of our LGOIMA responses, there is the escalation path to the Ombudsman should they be dissatisfied with the response. And often that is sometimes that usually that involves information we've withheld. So names or contact details or commercial aspects of responses that we would refuse or withhold. However, most of the big ones we don't get responses back from. So taxpayers union stuff, etc. We don't get responses back. That's good. I'd have to say that escalations from our responses to the Ombudsman are rare. They do occur, but they're not the norm. Most people are satisfied with the responses that they receive.
In terms of taxpayers union, I mean, like how much in proportion? Like, are they 80% of the requests? So that sort of scale, or is it lower?
I think they're 80% this month, and then they'll disappear for another year.
So they do it at certain times of the year?
Yes, yeah, so it's only annual.
Yeah, okay.
Deputy Mayor.
I just have a question. There's no name listed for who asked the question. 10th of the 2nd. The person is requesting the name and job title of the person who holds responsibility for people and culture, HR, etc. With a request like that, I just know it took 10 days. Obviously, council know who the person responsible for that is. Is the time frame sort of due to the fact that it's kind of a random question? No, because I just feel like there's no context to it. They're just being nosy, or
It went to the junk
okay,
Yes.
box of our customer service team.
yeah,
So it sat there.
right,
Precisely the question I asked, why would that take us 10 days?
yeah,
to respond.
yeah,
Yes, and we could have given that over the phone.
Yeah.
Really. But no, that was the reason why it took us so long to respond.
right,
No other reason behind that.
okay. I just thought it was kind of a random time frame for a
Yes,
random question, but
Don't try and slow them down.
yeah,
particularly if we can answer them pretty quickly. We'll
get it off the box.
get them out of the way.
Yeah, cool. That's all.
Apologies if you may have answered this, I'm not sure, but just in terms of, is this taking a lot of council time processing these requests?
It may do, but probably not in comparison to
Other things?
a few years ago. I think we're proactively publishing online now, which we weren't doing.
Reduce the demand for the, okay.
I think people can find the information.
Yeah. And I guess that's sometimes your response.
Yes,
Here's a link to our.
that's right.
That is correct. Yeah, we respond on the basis if the information is already publicly available in one of our reports, we will point them to that report.
So what we
Even if they ask for it in Excel, it's not our job to take our data or turn it into Excel and supply it to someone. We just point them to the link where the data is available.
So what you've got on this table here is over and above that. So right, where you've actually had to do a prepared response.
Yes, so we don't have all of our information online. So Taxpayer Union, for example, have a whole lot of questions, specific questions that we can answer. So that does take a lot of time. So it goes through finance, who will prepare it. It'll be checked by, in this case, Mark. It'll go through to Sarah. Jerry will check the draft response, and then the final response will.
Okay, and that's what this table is showing, is that type of response.
Yes. Yes, the table shows the questions that they've asked or the requests that they've made. That's what they've asked us. So there can be ebbs and flows. So if we look at under section 4 and the number of requests received, that sometimes there's not really a rhyme or reason why in August we received 12 requests in a month and then 2 in July. So sometimes there may be decisions or particular things, but it's certainly overall we've got less LGOIMAs coming in than we would have had 3 to 5 years ago.
For persistent questions, just out of interest more than anything. Once you've had a LGOIMA request and you've processed it, would that go onto the website?
Yes.
Become public information? It does.
Usually, yes.
We would normally retract the name of the requester if
Yes.
it wasn't public and publish it on our website.
And you'd have to,
Again, should someone ask for the same information, we will point to the LGOIMA and say we've released it.
okay, good stuff. You're not duplicating effort or anything. Yeah.
There's a link to all the published LGOIMAs in your agenda.
Okay. Oh, thanks. I'll have some nighttime reading.
Especially the one on Flat Point. It's only 161 pages.
I look forward to you attending the upcoming meeting.
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion? Thank you, Jerry. We have one recommendation, and that's that we receive the report. Mover, and thank you, Councillor Della. Seconder. Councillor Burns, thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. And 8.8. Service requests and complaints.
Thank you, Your Honour. So again, our standard report, you can see where those spikes are. And speaking of spikes, you'll note that mid-February, which was our weather event, which saw the parks and reserves and roading team service requests come in. So that's the reason for that, that increase there.
Questions? No questions. Discussion?
I just say that there's some people who've come to me knowing that I'm a councillor now saying, I want to complain about such and such, and I point them to the service request and I never hear from them again. So it's a good way out.
I'm not sure that's how it's meant to work.
Complaints process. Yeah, so often I don't want to delay us longer than we need to, but the definition of complaints and service requests. So some people say, I want to complain, my pipe's leaking.
Yeah.
So that's a service request.
Yes, that's right.
And so we have to be, we're trying to define our complaints and service requests really carefully.
Yeah.
The complaints we've listed here are about either our service response. So if we haven't fixed something to a standard, if people are unhappy with council, for whatever reason, those are complaints.
Yes, that's right.
And mostly everything.
Well, we're requesting something to be done. That's definitely a service request. Yes. Right. That's what I've been asked. Yeah.
Often they will say, I want to complain about the road outside, or I want to complain about X, Y, and Z. So we do tease that out to make sure.
Yeah, complaints used in both
It is,
scenarios, isn't it?
Yeah. But for our context here, we wanted to capture really if there were any unhappy residents or ratepayers that with our service. Yeah.
Just a question on the second complaint. Is that I'm just trying to understand the complaint, whether it should be a police complaint,
Yes.
or whether they're complaining that our footpath is too narrow, or it's a little bit. I can't really work out.
But we can do about that.
Yeah, how do I take that complaint?
Yes, or whether it's actually driving of the truck driver itself.
Yeah.
It was a back and forward in terms of who elected is, as well as it's the MPPA that runs it. So it was all more a request for information at the end of it.
Any further questions, discussion?
Because NZTA has the roundabout,
Yeah.
but they're talking about Park Road.
Yes, but it's
That's at the roundabout.
it's the corner of that footpath there.
It's a bit dodgy.
Okay.
Just one slight conflict of interest, I guess. Unprovoked attack on people at Underhill Road, Featherston. I don't care about that. And Mount Holdsworth. What's that?
It's sort of be a dog.
Oh, okay.
That's Featherston's territory, though. No,
A resident. It's most likely a complaint about a dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry, I don't know which.
Yeah, we'll have a look, but were they related, Featherston?
Just like to say, I hope the person in Featherston is okay. We do care.
Did they get sick online?
No further questions or discussion. We have one recommendation, and that's that we received the report. Ever mover, Councillor Newman, Councillor Casey seconder, all in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. We have no exclusion of the public, so that draws our meeting to a close, and we'll close with our Karakia whakamutunga. Kia whakaaria,
Kia waitara,
kia tiriki whakatahi,
kia tiriki whakatahi,
haumie, huie, tai.